The man took his wife to Paris for their honeymoon, and they wandered into an antique furniture shop by accident. The old leather briefcase on the shelf caught his attention, and he took it down. Its years of silence gave this briefcase an even stronger sense of age.
I think it's great. I feel like if we clean it up, you can use it for work. It's classy. I'm gonna get it for you.
Seeing how much he loved it, his wife decided to buy it for him. What they never expected was that this seemingly worn-out briefcase would completely reshape their lives. Rory was an unsuccessful writer, and in order to pursue his dream, he moved to New York with his wife, hoping that one day his writing could bring him fame and lift him out of poverty. For this dream, he wrote day and night, sending his work to every place that might publish it. But every time all he received were polite refusals or letters saying they were not interested. Even so, he never abandoned his desire to write, and thankfully his wife stayed by his side, supporting him quietly. Without steady income and unable to pay the rent, Rory had no choice but to turn to his father for help. But his father said this was the last time and hoped he would find a stable job that could sustain his life, saying that was what a man should do.
Another part of being a man, no matter how painful it might be, is accepting your own limitations.
His father's words made him fall into deep thought, and he finally accepted reality. Forced by the pressure of life, he found a job at one of the biggest publishing houses in New York, hoping it would help him build connections. One day he finally received a call he had been waiting for, and the editor-in-chief admired his work. But due to the poor market and lack of funds, Rory's newly lit hope was instantly extinguished.
Telling you the reality of the situation. Have patience. You know, I wouldn't have brought you in here if I really didn't believe in you.
Rory had spent 3 years writing, only to be met with this result, and it hurt him deeply. That night he had dinner with friends, but his friend's subtle showing off pierced straight into Rory's heart. His suppressed emotions finally erupted, and he walked away from the scene. His life path was drifting further and further away from the people around him, and he felt he was no longer on the same level. And although he wanted to change his situation and give his wife a better life, reality crushed him again and again.
Rory, how is that supposed to make me feel? How is that supposed to make me feel?
I'm not who I thought I was, okay?
When he sobered up that night, he apologized to his wife, and she understood his frustration and didn't take the incident to heart. She knew how hard things had been for Rory over the years and stayed beside him to comfort him quietly. Late at night, Rory fell into deep thought, and seeing his hard-worked manuscripts being worth nothing, he threw them into the trash. And even though he felt unwilling, he still had to bow to harsh reality. The next day he decided to focus on his current job, but then he discovered a hidden manuscript in the briefcase's inner pocket. From the cover, he could tell it was an old manuscript, and he carefully flipped through the contents, and its brilliant writing and delicate storytelling completely captivated him. He spent several days reading, and only then did he finish it, and he realized it was one of the most incredible stories he had ever read. In the following days, Rory became obsessed, and even in his dreams the story appeared again and again, with every word and every sentence forming vivid pictures in his mind, keeping him awake at night. He could no longer resist, and after researching, he found that the manuscript had never been published, so he typed the entire story into his computer word for word. His wife accidentally read the story he had typed, and it moved her to tears.
You are everything you've always wanted to be.
You don't understand.
Why would you? With this, Rory, you're a great writer. Take it to work and show it to someone. And if you're not going to do it for yourself, then please do it for me.
Facing his emotional wife, Rory didn't dare tell her the truth. On his way to work, he kept thinking about whether he should really do this, and he wondered if taking a risk might finally change their struggling life. Between real-world pressure and moral doubts, he ultimately chose the latter. He handed the manuscript to his boss, saying he wanted to hear his opinion, and then he left the office. Many more days passed, and Rory's anticipation slowly faded as he waited, and time dragged on until he nearly forgot about the book. That day, thinking the boss had new work to assign him, he instead finally received good news.
Outside of my wife. She was the one that insisted that I show it to you.
Well, I can't wait to meet her and thank her. I would very much like to represent you and your work.
Rory used this manuscript, one he had not written, to achieve the dream he had always chased. He soon signed a publishing contract, and once released, the book received unanimous praise in the industry, making him the new star of New York's literary world. And he even won a major national literary award sought by writers their entire lives. As his fame grew, his quality of life naturally improved, and he suddenly became successful, and his wife's many years of support were no longer in vain. Just as the two were enjoying the wealth and honor brought by the manuscript, its original author suddenly appeared. The elderly man held a newspaper and waited outside the newspaper office for Rory, and he followed him all the way to a park when he saw his chance. Rory sat quietly on a bench reading, and the elderly man sat beside him, pretending to casually feed the pigeons.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
The elderly man pretended to chat and then shifted the topic to another lesser-known book, but he did not mention the manuscript he had written. From their conversation, Rory learned that the man beside him was also a writer, and he did not act proud or superior, and Rory listened patiently because he clearly understood where his own honors had come from. Then the elderly man said he had another wonderful story in his hands and believed Rory would love it, and he hoped Rory could rewrite it so his reputation could rise even higher. But Rory did not take his words seriously, and he wondered why such a good opportunity would be given to him for no reason. He stood up to leave.
It's about a man who wrote a book and then lost it, and the pissant kid who found it.
Hearing the man's next sentence made Rory freeze in place, because he knew the author of the original manuscript was this elderly man. Rory sat back down beside him and began listening to his story. As a young soldier, he was stationed in Paris and assigned to do the simplest and most overlooked tasks. The harsh working environment crushed his hope for the future, and influenced by his comrades, he began to enjoy reading and could only find the joy of living inside books. One day a girl suddenly entered his life, bringing a ray of sunlight into his dull world. Although they could not understand each other's languages, it did not stop their hearts from coming together, and they soon fell deeply in love, becoming inseparable and creating memories he would cherish for a lifetime. Soon his service ended, and he was transferred to another city, and the two were forced to part, and he returned to his monotonous routine. With communication limited in those days, they lost contact, and he could only write in his notebook to remember their sweet moments. Gradually beginning to attempt writing, years later he became a locally known writer, so he returned to Paris and reunited with his lover. Wanting to stay with her forever, he found a job at a Paris newspaper and soon married her. Not long after, their child was born, and the three of them lived happily together, and those days were the happiest and most beautiful of his life. After the wedding, the man gradually shifted his attention to writing, and the passion he once had was worn away by daily life, and he longed for his work to succeed. At that time, their daughter fell seriously ill and passed away. His wife became silent and depressed, like a shell with her spirit drained away. He did not know how to comfort her and instead became upset because she kept ignoring him, and he stormed out and tried to drown his emotions in alcohol. When he returned home, he found that his wife had left a letter and gone back to her parents' home. At that moment he realized his mistakes, but it was already too late. The loss of their daughter and the departure of his wife became a double blow that crushed him, and he began typing his longing for his wife and child onto blank pages, which unexpectedly sparked a burst of inspiration. Ideas poured out of him, and he devoted himself to writing day and night for several weeks until he finally completed the greatest work of his life.
And then?
Then he slept, dreamless sleep. When he woke, he cleaned the apartment and went to find his wife.
He immediately went to see his wife, hoping to bring her back to Paris, but she had not yet recovered from the pain of losing their child, so she refused him and asked him to return alone. Before leaving, he placed the manuscript beside her, hoping she would understand his feelings. After reading it, she realized that it recorded every moment they had shared, and it allowed her to see hope for their future again. A few weeks later, she took a train back to Paris, but when she got off, she accidentally left his briefcase on the train. Before they could begin their new life together, he opened her travel bag and could not find his briefcase anywhere, and it might have been the one work he could never surpass again. He blamed his wife for losing it, and they argued, and he ran back to the station in desperation to search for it, asking every passerby if they had seen his briefcase. while his wife stood silently watching him. Inside, she felt guilty for losing the manuscript and also questioned her husband's behavior, wondering whether the manuscript meant more to him than she did. Filled with disappointment, he left, and he never returned to Paris again. After hearing the entire story, Rory could feel the regret behind the old man's past decisions and the years of guilt he had carried, and he could fully understand the sorrow embedded in that lost manuscript. He felt a deep sense of shame for having used someone else's work as his own.
A misunderstanding.
No, my friend. There's no misunderstanding, no. These are my words, my story. I don't know how you did it. I just thought you should know the story behind these stories, in case anyone was to ask.
The old man did not blame him or demand anything, and instead looked as if he wanted to let Rory keep everything, which made Rory feel even more guilty. He sat alone on the bench for a long time and later wandered the streets, drinking heavily in silence. That evening, he staggered home, and his wife was preparing dinner, immersed in the joy of their upcoming move to a new home. Suddenly, he asked her a question.
Is that Florence?
Why do you love me? I need to know why you love me.
I love you because you have beautiful eyes. I love you because you're serious all the time, but deep down, you're nothing but a goofball. I just love you. Rory, what's going on?
He knew how difficult all those years had been for her, and he did not want to hide the truth or let her feel she had married someone untrustworthy, so he finally decided to tell her everything. Rory confessed to his wife where the manuscript came from and how he had copied the story. She could not believe that her husband had become someone she no longer recognized. She had always trusted Rory's character and believed that his talent would one day be recognized, which was why she had stayed by his side for so many years. Now he had been blinded by success and had crossed a moral line she never thought he would cross.
When you read those words, when you copied them, did you ever stop to think about us? I'm sorry. I just can't be here.
Rory went to his boss and told him the truth, begging him to change the author's name to the old man's, but his boss refused, not wanting to be dragged into trouble or let it affect the book's sales. His boss then offered him advice.
You want to cut him into the movie rights? Fine. You want to buy him a house, a car, or a boat? And don't you screw me!
The boss did not care whether the manuscript was copied. He only cared that if the truth came out, the publishing house would be affected as well. The issue continued to torment Rory, disrupting his life and pushing him toward collapse, and his wife hoped he would make the right choice. Rory drove to the old man's home, hoping to make up for his wrongdoing with money.
You put that back in your pocket, I'll take you out back and kick the shit out of you.
After everything he had been through, the old man no longer cared about fame or profit, and money could not compensate for the life he had lived. And the guilt weighing on Rory's heart became the old man's way of punishing him, the true consequence of taking someone else's work.
What is all this about then?
What is it about? It's about my life. It's about my wife, about my child. It's about the joy and the pain that gave birth to those words.
In that moment, Rory finally understood that the manuscript was the old man's final connection to his wife, a way of comforting himself for the love he had lost.
I got work to do. This place doesn't run itself.
Sir, please.
From Rory's eyes, the old man could see that he now understood the gravity of what he had done, and much of the old man's anger faded, and he asked Rory to sit beside him. The old man said that the story he told earlier was not the whole truth, and that a few years after his wife left, he could never move on, so he went to the city where she lived, and what he saw there stayed with him for the rest of his life. His wife had built a new family and had a lovely daughter, and from her face he could see she was living a happy life. In the end, he did not go up to see her but quietly walked away.
We all make choices in life. Hard thing is to live with them. Go on.
I do love your book.
At that moment the old man had long let go of everything, and he forgave Rory as well. After leaving the old man, Rory sat alone on a bench in the park for a long time and finally told the truth to the public through the media. Because of this, he lost everything he had gained. but he gained peace in his heart and was no longer tormented, and his wife forgave him, and they returned to their simple life together. A few months later, the old man passed away, and Rory handled the funeral for him since he had no family. And in the end, Rory returned the old man's manuscript and buried his guilt along with it. Life is often like this. When you desperately chase something, you face endless setbacks. When you gain something by accident, you may not feel true joy. And in the end, you must carry the weight of what you did not earn. We all face many choices in life, and continuing forward with those choices is the hardest lesson of all.